Sadly, match fixing is front and centre once again. The World Authority on Match Fixing is indeed Declan Hill. Declan, welcome back to the show.
Hey, welcome guys. Thanks for having me back on.
Lots of bravado this week, Declan, from Europol, from FIFA, from various authorities around football. Are these just more shallow threats?
No, I think that's actually a good question. What I'm seeing in the, quote, official fight against match fixing is essentially two camps. One is Interpol and FIFA, which, from my opinion at this moment, is largely motherhood statements. You know, they'll stand up at a conference and they'll say, oh, what a terrible problem match fixing is. But they won't actually do anything about it. And the other one is these guys at Europol who really represent pretty hardline cops from around Europe. Including my former friends and my friends and allies at BOCM, the Organized Crime Task Force, who have really been the vanguard to making investigations, arrests, and convictions of fixers. And what we're seeing is a kind of battle between these two forces as to who's going to be taken most seriously. And for my money, I think it's these recent guys, it's the Europol people that you should put your money on for actually doing something about the problem.
Very interesting. I want to ask you about those police investigations on Europol. Are they genuine? Are they looking out for the good of the game? Is there no concern there in terms of what they, maybe they're in with the fixers as well?
No, I think these European police guys are legitimate, and they're legitimate because all the sports officials are furious with them. UEFA, FIFA, the English Football Association is furious because they, quote, weren't informed before they were, doing these things. Well, I think that's a pretty strong indication of the credibility that the football associations have with these frontline cops. These cops are making serious arrests. They're really going after the guys. They put a number of the major European match fixers on trial. So they are doing good work. It's when the football association is actually going to get to the starting line, and that I have no idea about.
Well, on that note, Declan, a couple of quotes here from two of the most powerful men in world football. Not Dan Tam, we'll get to him later on, but Michel Platini, UEFA president. He says, if tomorrow we go watch a game already knowing the outcome, football is dead. Sepp Blatter has said it's also time for governments to take the threat of match fixing seriously and introduce appropriate sanctions as a deterrent. Your comments on those statements?
Well, I think let's start with a more controversial figure, Sepp Blatter. I think he is saying two things, and I'm very heartened to hear that he's finally saying these things. One is he's giving an underlying message to the Singaporean government, which we will discuss in a second. Their incredible hiding and covering up of some of their national citizens who've been involved in this for decades. But he's also kind of tearing what, I don't want to make this a personal remark, but what little hair Blatter has at the moment out. And this is genuinely, one feels sympathy for the guy. The Swiss authorities arrested a number of fixers, both fixers and players in Switzerland. They brought them to trial, and then they were let off on a legal technicality that type of fixing, quote, gambling wasn't actually illegal in Switzerland. And, I really feel sympathy for Blatter, but at this moment I do. And I think he was saying, look, guys, here I am. I'm running the World Football Association from Switzerland, and it's not even illegal in Switzerland to fix a football match. Can you give me a break here? So rare in this world, I now have sympathy for Sepp Blatter. Platini... Let's mark that moment.
I was going to say, yeah, we'll archive that one for you.
Yeah, no doubt. Let's get into Singapore here. You touched on it there. How big of a part have they played in this? You wrote it on your insightful blog about that man in question, Dan Tan. How major part of a player is he in this whole ring of match fixing?
Look, gentlemen, you know my book, The Fix, Soccer, Organized Crime. The last part is how I infiltrate a group of fixers, quote, match brokers, in Asia and Bangkok, Singapore, and Kuala Lumpur. And Dan Tan was part of that group. This guy is, in my opinion, and from what I've seen of the European police evidence, a very, very serious player. The problem that's happened is that the European police associations, the guys that I was talking about earlier, identified him, put their colleagues at Interpol, the International Police Agency. They got together an international police arrest warrant, which is very, very serious kind of stuff. They brought it over to Singapore months and months ago, gave it to the Singaporean authorities, and the Singaporean authorities have done nothing for it. Now, I want our viewers to remember all those scenes that they see in Hollywood movies where the cops come, busting in, and the drug dealers are running up and throwing the drugs down the toilet and frantically flushing. Look, That man has had months to do that. He's had months to destroy his hard drives, and months to take away his mobile phone, months to destroy any potential evidence that he may have. And this is just outrageous. And it gets worse. It actually gets worse. People sit down. If you're sitting down, make sure that you're firmly secured because you're going to fall off your seat. FIFA and Interpol is opening a $20 million anti-match fixing headquarters, a global center to combat this terrible plague to the world sport. Where are they putting it? Singapore. The very country that won't even serve their own arrest warrants. The very country where the fixers, the guys the Europeans are saying are fixers, are wandering around the streets. Now, I know those guys, as you know. I know them personally and directly. They're very intelligent men. That's the fixers. They will have somebody in that headquarters within 6 hours of it opening, if not before.
So obviously Sepp Blatter's involved in that. He's well aware of where that's going to be built.
And I think, to be fair to Blatter, those last comments that you just quoted me on national governments are him saying, oh my goodness, come on, guys. But it's really up to Interpol and it's really up to FIFA executives to say to Singaporean government, no matter how they do it, look, guys, one, we're not going to put our anti-match fixing headquarters if this continues. And two, Singapore, we don't really think you're welcome in international sport. Your people have traveled around the world to our countries, including Canada, by the way, and you're fixing our games. We think the national team, your national team, should take a step back for the next couple of years because you're just not welcome.
Declan, one of the most alarming things for me in all of this, and what came out on Monday, was the over 150 international matches that have taken place in different continents around the world. Anybody who read your book, and particularly the chapter on Ghana in 2006, shouldn't be surprised by this. How do we get rid of that? Is it just about players being paid more money by their independent federations and maybe FIFA to play in these to stop this?
Yeah, I think that's a brilliant question, and I don't want to sound monotonous here, but this is one of these rare moments in life, both personal life and professional life, and we all know how complicated life can be, but this is one of these rare moments where it's really simple. Arrest the fixer. People talk about, oh, what a complicated problem is, oh, the great numbers, oh, my goodness, what are we going to do? I'm like, guys, if this was a bank robbery, and we had a bunch of gang, we had a gang that was going around robbing all the banks, we wouldn't be discussing the financial system. We wouldn't be discussing, do we want $1 or blah, blah, blah. We'd just say, arrest the bank robber. Why is it so complicated when we get into football or soccer, excuse me? Why is it so complicated? We know who the guys are. We know that he's established a network around the world of national football officials, because there is no way that you can fix 150 international matches involving national teams without some, not all, not even the majority, but some national FA officials being involved. And this is where I think some of the official reluctance is coming from, is because if you were to put some of these fixers on trial, on a public trial, if you make them a deal, a proper deal, and they were to stand up and say, we worked with the following people, and the following businessmen in Asia gave us protection and money, there would be major domestic political scandals in some Asian countries. And as far as FIFA were concerned, some of the people in their national football associations, not FIFA in Zurich, but some of those national football associations, would be up for criminal charges. Now, I want our listeners, our viewers, to realize the majority of football officials, despite what you hear, despite the kind of exaggeration, are very honest. But there are clearly corrupt people in the international game, and they've got to be caught. And if we were to do that, the fixing, for the most part, at this moment, would be dramatically cut down.
It's a great point, because you can't, for example, tell the CSL to start paying its players lots of money to avoid these temptations. Domestically speaking, the CSL has been unsanctioned by the CSA. Is this a great step forward, do you think, by the Canadian Soccer Association?
Look, it's deeply embarrassing to be a Canadian expert on international match fixing with the attitude of the Canadian Soccer Association. My attitude is, hello, boys, like, you're 3 years too late. I mean, this is something that they should have done years ago. There were 9 countries named in the Bochum Organized Crime Task Force trials in Germany. 8 of those countries have launched national police investigations against this problem. The one exception is our home and native country, Canada. So as you guys know, I was a keynote speaker in Interpol and FIFA in Rome a couple of weeks ago. I was promptly disinvited after my presentation, but that's another story. But you go there, and Ron Noble, the head of Interpol, is talking about Canada as a problem. And I'm like, yeah, what can I say? Really, what can I say? We have known for 3 years, despite what my former colleagues at the CBC are claiming, they didn't break the story. We've known about the CSL fixing for 3 years since the trial happened in Bochum. And only this week have things started to happen with the Canadian Soccer Association. It's outrageous. And it's a very, very, very small step towards properly protecting the Canadian game.
Final question from me, Declan. They named over 400 what they called suspects. I want to ask you what you consider to be a suspect. Is it quite possible that some of these people they've named as suspects actually don't believe they did anything wrong? And by what I mean by that is maybe they just supplied some information, or maybe introduced the wrong person to the right person at that time, and maybe they may well be a suspect but may not think that they are?
I don't know. I don't know, James. In every group of people that get arrested by the police, there's always the innocent ones. I mean, or almost always innocent people. So you can take it for granted that there are innocent people among their list of suspected people, but you can also take it for granted that there are a number of people. In fact, there's a number of European countries that are not included in that press conference. For example, they didn't mention Canada, and we haven't had a single arrest of anybody in Canada.
Yeah, Declan, as always, a sobering conversation, but a very important conversation. Thank you so much.
Cheers, Declan.
Thanks a lot, guys. All the best.
It's Declan Hill. Please, I said it before, I'll say it again, check out The Fix. It's a fantastic, fantastic read. And also Declan's blog on a regular basis.
Yes.
He outs those segments of our game that are frankly ruining our game.